Senator Murkowski, who is the co-chair of the Oceans Caucus. Her co-chair, Sheldon Whitehouse, has already testified. We welcome you, Senator. Whenever you're comfortable, please begin.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the ranking member, other members of the committee who are not here today, but who will hopefully have an opportunity to view the testimony. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on some very important treaties facing the United States Senate and before your committee here at Foreign Relations. Taking the time to address these fisheries treaty is critically important, particularly the effects of IUU fishing and activities on U.S. interests. Senator Whitehouse and I have been working as co-chairs of the Senate Oceans Caucus to really try to be strong advocates for our nation's oceans and fisheries. And I think it is critically important that as we look to the strength of our fisheries, the strength of our oceans, it is so important to understand that our oceans know no boundaries, in the sense that we know where the borders are of our states, we know where the borders are of our countries, but we need to ensure that as we are working with other nations when it relates to our fisheries, that we have some understandings. I'm here today because the fishing and the seafood industries are vital economic drivers in my state. Alaska's fisheries are the most abundant and sustainably managed in the nation, and we're quite proud of that. We lead all states in terms of both volume and value of commercial fisheries, with approximately 1.84 million metric tons, worth $1.3 billion. We account for over 52% of the nation's commercial seafood harvests. Alaska's commercial, sport, and subsistence fisheries are at the heart of coastal Alaska. They're the economic livelihood for more than 80,000 Alaskans who are either directly or indirectly employed in the industry. The witnesses that you have today will give great overview of these important issues. They can address the international and the domestic implications of the treaties that you have before you. You do have an individual on the third panel, Mark Gleason, who is with the Alaska Bering Sea Crabbers Association. I appreciate the fact that he's traveled to D.C. today to testify on behalf of the organization. Now, you might not have heard of the Bering Sea Crabbers Association, but most people are at least familiar with the deadliest catch. All you need to do is think of deadliest catch, and it takes you into the activities of the Bering Sea. Some of you may not know that I have a little bit of an interest in not only the crab fishery, but safety on the seas. My son just finished up a season in the Bering Sea crabbing. They left last night through Unimak Pass to travel across the Gulf of Alaska. He's headed back home, and he's probably going to have some Bering Sea crab stories that I'm not sure that his mother is really ready to hear yet, but I'm bracing myself. But as I think about the experience that my son has had as a Bering Sea crab fisherman, given what we have put in place with safeties and precautions and protocols, it's a much better world now for our crabbers and our fishermen than it was just a few years ago. It is important, however, that Alaska and U.S. fishermen have a level playing field when it comes to our harvesting opportunities. Russian IUU crab has been a serious problem for Alaska since at least 1990. As is true for most commodity markets, crab prices, of course, are driven by supply. But IUU crab lowers the market price to fishermen and processors and tax revenues to our state. The estimated impacts of IUU crab to harvesters since the year 2000 is about $560 million, with an additional cost to crab processing ports of over $1 million in lost landing revenues. So these are real dollars that we're talking about. This is real impact to a state. As recently as 2011, NOAA law enforcement seized 112 metric tons of illegally harvested Russian king crab that was being shipped to U.S. markets through the Port of Seattle. So I'm pleased to be followed by representatives from the Coast Guard, NOAA, and the State Department, who will speak in more detail on their efforts to prevent IUU seafood from entering the U.S. These three agencies, with assistance from the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol and the FDA, successfully prosecuted the case and helped shut down one avenue for illegal imports. And I think this is a positive example, and I believe the treaties before you will enhance the effectiveness of U.S. authority to deter IUU activities. Two of the treaties that you have, the Port State Measures Agreement and the Convention on the Conservation and Management of High Seas Fisheries Resources in the North Pacific, are very important to my state's fishermen. The first sets global standards to combat IUU fishing. We've got high standards. It will help to protect U.S. fishermen by keeping foreign, illegally caught fish from entering the global stream of commerce. Specifically, it establishes global port restrictions designed to catch vessels engaged in illegal fishing activities when they attempt to offload the fish in port. The second will establish a new regional fishery management organization for fisheries resources located near the North Pacific and not currently addressed through pre-existing international fisheries management bodies. I would like to comment also, Mr. Chairman, on the fact that IUU vessels can also be some pretty bad actors beyond the world of fishing. You're going to be hearing testimony from the third panel on the role that IUU vessels are playing in the context of human trafficking and drug smuggling. And while these particular fishing treaties aren't focused on these issues specifically, it is my understanding that they will provide additional tools that can help U.S. law enforcement officials crack down on them as well. Again, I truly appreciate, and I know that my colleague Senator Whitehouse does as well, the efforts of this committee to look into these issues, to discuss them thoroughly, to advance these treaties that, again, will level the playing field for U.S. fisheries. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to take any questions that you might briefly have, but I appreciate the allowance and indulgence of your time and allowing me to pop in as we juggle votes. Thank you.
We appreciate your leadership, Senator Murkowski.